Sunil Goyal sir has been the past president of ICAI for the year 2004 and 5. And we have amongst us CA Suresh Prabhu sir, who's the former union minister with 10 portfolios, 6 times member of parliament, 4 times with Lok Sabha and 2 times with Rajya Sabha. The founding Chancellor of Rishihood University, visiting professor at the London School of Economics and Political Science. Sir has held 10 important cabinet portfolios at the federal level in the Government of India, including industry, power, environment and forest, railways, civil aviation, and many more. We welcome you, sir, here. Thank you so much for being at the ICAI and the World Congress of Accountants with us today. Now I would like to request CA Sunil Goyal sir, past President ICAI, to kindly address the session.
Good morning all. A very warm welcome to Honorable Shri Prabhu Sahab, one of us and one with whom all of us at the Institute have been so comfortable in approaching him at different times for all the problems of the profession, of the Institute, and whatever we felt like. Friends, paucity of time compels me to come to the topic immediately. Now, when we are meeting at this grand auditorium and we are talking about the ecosystem of the startups, I cannot help but go back 20 years when one book was published by Thomas Friedman, The World is Flat. And it was an eye-opener for us in India to realize that what good Y2K has done to the Indian software industry. And since then, as the saying goes, the India has not looked back and has taken big strides in our startups, in our technology, and positioning India at the forefront of the world. So coming from there, when we find that the startup thing started, which was till very recently a domain of the Silicon Valley only, and we have seen the stories of success one after another, then when we find that very culture is cultivating and not cultivating but multiplying, not in arithmetic progression, but perhaps in geometric progression, then one just have a sense of bit pride that how we have evolved into this. Now, when we talk about startups, we all know that a startup cannot be done, cannot be promoted somebody, you do one startup. It is not like opening up a factory, opening up an industry. It's not like that. The idea of startups come from the within. It is one thing which others tell you not to do, but you have the passion, you have the zeal, and you have the vision to do. So this is one thing which you develop in yourself and then take it to the world stage. Having said that, how we can promote the ecosystem for the startup is definitely one thing which we are doing, and we can cultivate it, we can mentor it in many ways so that we can see that it can be done in this manner. Now, what is the ecosystem? Ecosystem is nothing but everything surrounding a startup. It can be family, it can be friends, it can be angel investor, it can be VC fund, it can be mentors, it can be incubators, it is accelerators, and everything which is surrounded with the startup. Everything plays a very important role in developing a startup, and when these things multiply by themselves, we call it that a very good ecosystem is being done. Now, this has to be coupled with a very good regulatory support to them, because startups being in a very nascent stage are not able to cope up with very strong regulations or very harsh regulations of the government, and they need some support in the fiscal laws also. And happy that the government has also playing a proactive role in providing a good support in terms of benefits, support, incentives to the startups. Now, this is what all constitute a part of startup. They also need a ecosystem based on which our profession is doing a great job in supporting them as a mentor, as a guide person, connecting them to the right persons, and helping them in getting various help from the respective persons where they can get. Now, this is being done in two modes. One is the top-down, other is the bottoms-up. The best concept which I visualize personally, and this is my view, that the startup thing should come from the bottom-up approach, because an idea is germinated in the mind of a passionate entrepreneur who has that idea and he takes it up, and then everything supportive we can put in place to cultivate him and to mentor him to that. Now, we find that in this arena, we will very soon see that the Bangalore, which has presently become the capital of startups, will match the Silicon Valley. Perhaps it is too early for me to say that we will outpace Silicon Valley. But times are not very behind when we can say that we will be coming at the level of the Silicon Valley and see our success. Our success in startups, sir, in the fintech, we are now the leading persons in the world. And it will be happy that we can say that in the fintech, what technology we are using here is not available in the Western world itself. So this has demonstrated our zeal and our commitment as well, that how, if we are determined, we can create the startups which are of the world level. Now we just heard about the Joho Corporation chairman, what a wonderful job he is doing from living in a remote village. We heard Mr. Adani also yesterday, and who said that in 2021, we have created more startups than what we did from 2010 to 2020. And please note, 21 was a very bad year because of COVID-2. So if that miracle can happen in COVID-2 year, no doubt about that, together with the ecosystem that we are providing, we can very well develop some good startups which will be, and we are doing it. We are doing it, actually speaking. I'm very sure that when we talk about this thing, and when we talk about the funding for the, not funding, the all support to the startups, we will be very much supportive of them for their needs. Now, a question is asked, sir, why we don't have a startup like Gmail, why we don't have like many more things which have come from the Silicon Valley. Yes, sir, that is one arena where we will have to wait for a while, because the scene has now started only. I'm very sure when we meet in any conference after 2 years, we'll be having some big things which are showcased as an Indian origin startup which has taken the world in its stride. And I'm sure that that will be a grand success for us to celebrate. I am thankful for giving me this opportunity to speak at this moment, and thanks a lot. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, respected CA Sunil Goyal, sir, for the wonderful address to the session today. And now moving forward, I would like to request our Honorable CA Suresh Prabhu, sir, our former Union Minister and Member of Parliament, to kindly address all of us. Let's have a big round of applause.
Good morning, friends. Thank you, Goyal sir, for giving a very comprehensive introduction to the subject and elaborating it so well. So let me first of all welcome all the delegates who have come from different parts of the world to India. Also, let me welcome those who have come from outside Mumbai, because I'm supposed to be staying in Mumbai. The statement which my wife will very strongly contest. She'll say you don't stay in one place at all. But I'm really very happy to see such a large number of people who are gathered together for doing something good for the world. So let me welcome all of you, congratulate the President and my institute for hosting it so well. And I'm sure as we go along, we all together will not just build this relationship further, but also try to do something even better together. So we all are now enamored by the startup. And probably someone might think that it's a recent evolution that the startups have become a new catchword. Actually speaking, ever since the human being has started inhabiting this world, on this planet, there's always been a startup. The people have been innovating all the time. And they've been innovating, and that's why they survived. If they have not innovated, if that stagnated, they would have become extinct long time back. They would have also become the dinosaurs of the world. But because there is an intrinsic strength in the human mind to always to take away something which they think will advance their own interest, and in the process, they have been able to develop some new ideas. That's how we survived. In fact, in my opinion, the first startup of the world, the one who discovered fire in the world. If humans had not discovered fire, there would never have been so much of development of the humanity on the planet as much as we have witnessed in the last several millions of, a few million years. But today, in the last few decades, we have seen a very interesting phenomena in the world. The liquidity was rising so much, and the liquidity has a big challenge. If you keep the funds liquid, those who are maintaining liquidity will always go into loss. So deployment of resources is one of the biggest and important issue. And therefore, if you want to deploy, you want to find out an investable cause. And therefore, all those who are holding these funds, they have to chase ideas where they can go and put their money. At the same time, something interesting happened in the world, and that's something which we have all witnessed in our generation, is the technology which came to fore at a pace, at a magnitude that was unimaginable few decades ago. So technology was driving innovation. There were a lot of funds available, and therefore the funds tried to put money into such ideas. And there have been very successful startups in the world which have changed the human behavior, human life like never before. So the most successful startup we all know, they no longer will be identified as startups, whether it is Facebook or Google or something. But when they all started as extremely small idea driven by entrepreneurship and technology at the same time. But now, as we enter a very interesting phase in the global economy, where the money supply is contracting, interest rates are going up, uncertainty is rising like never before, and therefore at such time, we have to find out how to ensure that this continuous drive towards innovation and change, which will make life better, should happen in a significant way. One of the reasons why the startup, the biggest even today, is in the US. Why did US is still the leader in the startups of the world? India is incidentally number 3. And I was handling this as the Minister of Commerce and Industry, and I've seen an amazing amount of entrepreneurship in the Indians. I must have met several thousand of them individually, and was surprised and impressed by the kind of new ideas they are generating, and they have the ability to pursue those ideas vigorously. That's the reason why people succeed. And now US, and that's the topic that you talk about, ecosystem. the US succeeded, it's because, I would say, technology-related stocks at least, because of Silicon Valley. What is Silicon Valley? Actually, it's the ecosystem that we talk about. You have almost everybody who can make an idea into a successful business venture. Take a business venture into a level wherein those who invest, as well as the company itself, as well as those who promoted the idea, all will benefit. So this was a win-win formula that was developed not very far from Hollywood. Hollywood also develops new formulas for making business. But Silicon Valley not very far from there, in the same state incidentally, and actually created these huge success stories. If there was no Silicon Valley, I don't know how many startups would have succeeded. But Silicon Valley is a classic example of ecosystem. Where this word ecosystem comes from? Actually, ecosystem is a word which comes from ecology. When you talk about ecosystem, the whole planet survives because of the ecological forces working in tandem. If there is slight imbalance, you will probably see the extinction of the planet itself. And that runs in tandem. That's why even the smallest of the living being, a species, is responsible for keeping the entire ecosystem alive. The big trees, they survive because of growth that happens below them. The small plants survive because they are also fed with the kind of micronutrients that they get from the entire system. Now, so ecosystem cannot survive unless everything happens at the same time. And that's why the word for a startup is ecosystem. So you must make sure that everything happens at the same time, and that's the only way ecosystem can survive. And if that survives, the startups can survive. So at a time, as I said earlier, when now the cost of funds is rising, liquidity is going down, how will you get the enough nutrient? That's what the startup need is money. That's their nutrient. That's their fertilizers. How do you get that is going to be a big challenging issue. At the same time, when we talk about ecosystem, as I said, Mr. Goyal Sahab mentioned, as I was just now saying, that it has to evolve, which creates the startup, makes startup succeed. At the same time, for an audience like this, I was just wondering, because Goyal Sahab has already explained what the startups and all are about, so rather than repeating that, what is that this World Chartered Accountant Forum, or rather this gathering, the Congress, hosted by my alma mater, Institute of Chartered Accountants of India, what they can do together? See, normally, a starting point of a startup is when the idea is born. So it's entrepreneurship driven. Can you think about a little different kind of a model? And that's the ecosystem that we are talking about. Can we identify certain global problems? And that's why there is a global audience from almost more than 100 countries, either attending in physically or virtually. Can we all think together, what is that, the global problem that we are all facing? And can we find out an entrepreneurial solution to those problems? Today, as I speak, there is a COP27 going on in Egypt, where we are discussing climate change. And that discussion is happening as to what governments can do, what they should not do. But can we change the discourse of this discussion, particularly for this audience, and we say, we need to address climate change, otherwise we are all gone. But if you want to address climate change adequately, can we think about making sure that we as chartered accountants, we as auditors, we as accountants of the world, can we come together and identify certain issues which cause climate change? We all know about it. The greenhouse gas emission is the cause of climate change, and we know what causes greenhouse gases emission. So there are two ways we have to deal with is mitigation and adaptation. But we all know all this. But now going little deeper into it, as we normally don't do audit, but we do forensic audit. So if you want to do the forensic audit of why climate change is causing problems, and we'll go into the causes and identify certain issues on which we need technological solutions and offer this to the entrepreneurial community and tell them why not you address this problem, by which you will make a business case, you will develop a business model, but at the same time socio-economic problems of the world can be addressed. Incidentally, no business can ever survive if it is not addressing underlying genuine socio-economic problems. Today, for example, a very simple example of startup. There are people who deliver your food to your house, and that has become very successful startup. They may not be making profits, but the valuation is to the roof, because the person who is ordering the food doesn't want to go out of the roof of his house, and that's why the valuation is going through the roof of his company, which is delivering the food to him. But just imagine they have addressed the issue, because nobody wanted to leave house after coming tired, husband, wife, both working. So this was a social issue, social problem that they addressed. Now just imagine on a larger scale, if you can develop and identify certain challenges like this and put it before the entrepreneurs. Not what we are discussing in COP27, that what government should do, and government will never do the right things anytime. So we must find out a ways of finding out how to address this problem through entrepreneurial spirit. In fact, the world has progressed. India has become the 5th largest economy of the world thanks to the Prime Minister Narendra Modi's leadership, but that is driven by the entrepreneurship of Indians. And therefore, entrepreneurship only can lead the way. And if you want the entrepreneurs to succeed, you must also ensure that at the same time that will be a sustainable idea. Not sustainable from an environment perspective, but long-term business perspective. And to do that, I would urge all my fellow members from the profession to find out, can we create a new ecosystem in which we identify an issue and offer it to the entrepreneurial community to address them. And then we can find out ways of financing them. It always happens in case of Silicon Valley, as said. That's part of ecosystem. We can vet an idea as auditors better than anybody else, because auditors know exactly what could be the pitfalls. Incidentally, we know very successful startups, but have you kept count of upstarts? Startup we know. What about upstarts? There are more failures in startup than successes in startup. And that's obvious, because as I said, in ecosystem, ecology always is based on that principle. Not everybody that is born on the planet survives. It is the survival of the fittest. But the survival of the fittest in startup, it can be, just to say in a lighter vein, you can say it's a vulnerability of the fattest. What is the vulnerability? Because you come out with an idea, you create a hype around it, a lot of people invest in it, and if investors don't make money, the bigger the startup idea, the fatter the idea, and if it fails, the people who suffer are even more than a small idea that was there. So now as chartered accountants, as auditors, can we vet the idea in a way that this failures rate can be reduced to a great extent, and by doing that, we'll actually helping the cause, because if one startup fails, the other good startups will never get the money, because the startup community will get a bad name. So can we therefore develop a new ecosystem than what is existing today, to vet an idea in a manner that at early stage we know that there are some signs of stress in this business idea. So obviously the future investors will not come in, which will avoid their losses, and if they avoid their losses, that same capital will be available to a better idea, which we as auditors can promote and bring to fore. So I think it's very important now that as we go along, we must think about even a bigger idea, and particularly this such large audience. That idea, the new ecosystem that you can think about for startup is how to make world a better place. I think that should be a broader theme. And in that, all the socio-economic issues that we are facing today, can the entrepreneurial community of the world, and I have tremendous confidence that most of the problems that we are facing in the world are human created, including the climate change, which is proved by science, that is human induced greenhouse gas emission which is causing it. So human has created the problems, only humans can solve the problem. So they can use technology as a tool, or they can use idea as a trigger to bring about a change for better. So can this new thinking be pervading in different parts of the business community and find out how to make world a better place? To do that, I think you can make it as a theme for the next few World Congresses, in which you identify the problem and create a sort of ecosystem wherein the people who have ideas, people who have entrepreneurial spirit, who have technology, can actually link this in single platform in which we can then make sure that we address these problems to make world a better place. So I think this could be one of the outcomes that we should strive to make a new ecosystem. So this is enhancing startup ecosystem. So as I was saying, startup is something nobody can stop. It has always been there and will continue to be there as long human beings survive. Because one of the biggest instincts on all living beings is survival. All living beings on the planet are born with this intrinsic thing within them that they have to survive. So for survival, they'll always find out ideas, and that will do it. Of course, it's a paradox that startup, for their own survival, try to do the idea, but if there's no ecosystem, they won't survive. Because for survival, a startup, you need ecosystem. So we have to actually create a new paradigm into developing new ideas into ecosystem, which I have said on the broader theme of how to make world a better place, not just addressing climate change, but addressing inequality. Just imagine what is inequality? It is uneven distribution of resources. With technology, if we can make access possible for the people, many of these inequal challenges can be addressed. For example, take energy. Even today, with huge use of energy, and that's the cause of climate change, still there are people who have no access to energy. Can we think about new ideas to make that energy possible through the startups? Can we start distributed generation of electricity rather than centralized distribution, centralized creation and centralized generation and distribution? Can we not have distributed generation? That startups can take up in a very big way. But for them to think on those lines, they need some professional assistance, some idea, some ecosystem, and now that can be created by way of engagement with a community like all who are present in this auditorium or those who are virtually linked, because they are professionally qualified to offer these kind of ideas and solutions to them. In fact, as we go along, we'll see even more technology coming in. More technology is an advantage as well as a challenge. There will be a lot of ethical issues involved in the use of technology, particularly artificial intelligence. How can we therefore bring all of these challenging issues at the same time, allowing entrepreneurship and new innovations to thrive? I think we need some professional body, and that's what, in my opinion, is a new ecosystem, not body in the sense not to create any more bodies. I'm talking about using professional talent available within this community and actually make them a starting point for a new startup revolution in the world. India is very proud. We are the third largest. And as I said earlier, I'm so impressed with the kind of new ideas that younger entrepreneurs generate. Unimaginable. I just met a guy who may be 17. I met him in his university. And he was talking about ideas. I said, where did you learn all this? He said, I never learned anywhere. I got it in my own way. So when you talk about ecosystem, it's not education institutions which are necessary to promote ideas and entrepreneurship. Incidentally, most of the successful startups who are now shining in the world, they never went to university. Or most of them are dropped out from the university. Of course, therefore, I am not saying if you want to be a successful startup, you must get first dropped out from the university. I am not saying that. But at the same time, this is what it has happened. So education has least contribution to making it happen. But just imagine if you align the new education system to promote startups in a different way, that again can be the new accelerator for startups to thrive and succeed. So thank you very much. I am seeing the time running out for me, and therefore I would stop here. I wish all of you think differently and try to contribute to this bigger cause of making world a bigger place. Thank you very much.
It was absolutely an honor, sir, to hear from you on the theme for the day today, which was on enhancing the startup ecosystem. And how beautifully you've been able to share with us on the key important growth drivers which are required amongst technology, innovation, deployment, and an entrepreneurial spree, amongst others, for a flourishing startup ecosystem. Can we have a big round of applause for sir, please? Thank you. And as a token of our deep gratitude and appreciation, I would like to invite on the dais CA Durgesh Kapraji, CCM ICAI, on the dais, please. To kindly present a memento to our honorable distinguished guest, CA Suresh Prabhu sir, former Union Minister and Member of Parliament. Can we have a big round of applause, everyone? Thank you so much, sir. May I now invite CA Kimisha Soni, CCM ICAI, on the dais, please, to kindly present a memento to our respected CA Sunil Goyal, sir, past President, ICAI. Let's have a big round of applause. Thank you so much, distinguished speakers, for joining us for this session.